Hi, my name is Anna and I'm a senior here at UNT. I really appreciate all of you coming to view my presentation, and I hope that you learned something new about celiac disease and gluten intolerance. For me, it was a struggle that I didn't think that I would ever have to face, but suddenly found out that I did. A little over 3 years ago, when I was in my freshman year of college, I started to get very, very sick, and before I came to college, I was always getting sick to my stomach and always feeling bad and always having to rush home after eating out at restaurants, and it just got to the point where it was completely affecting my life. And because of that, I had to go to doctors and get tested, and for a long time they couldn't quite tell me what was wrong. Celiac disease was a disease that was known, but not really known to affect a lot of people, so therefore doctors were a little bit hesitant as to if one of their patients would have it or not. But for me, it turns out that I did have it, and now I am dealing with celiac disease every single day, and so I thought it would be a good topic for this presentation. Over here, to your left, there's going to be a slideshow going. It's just going to have the main points going so that you can kind of follow along while I'm talking, and if you need any review, you can just take a look at that. So when you first got here, we did the name tag exercise. Basically, everyone walked in and got a name tag, and then wrote on their name on a name tag, put it in a bowl, and then you picked a different name tag. That was to help you get to know the person that you're sitting next to you, even though there's only 4 of you. It is still a good way so that in case you have any questions or concerns and you don't feel comfortable talking to me, you can still talk to your new friend that you made in that exercise. Like I said, my name is Anna, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. First, I'm going to explain to you what gluten is. Gluten is a protein composite found in wheat, barley, and rye. In America, we use gluten in a lot of foods that we consume. So therefore, if you are diagnosed with celiac disease, it is a big thing. Celiac disease is a digestive disorder where your stomach rejects the protein gluten. And the reason it does this is because your body just simply cannot handle it. Over here on the PowerPoint, I will also have that explaining. So just remember that gluten is found in wheat, barley, and rye. So if you find out that you cannot consume gluten, or someone that you know cannot consume gluten, then always look on the back of the foods for wheat, barley, and rye. It's also known as the protein composite that holds dough together. It creates the elastic-like feeling when you make pizza or cookies or anything of that such. So celiac disease. Celiac disease is a digestive disorder. It is basically your body having a toxic reaction to gluten. Your body simply rejects it. It's an autoimmune disorder that basically kills off the celluli in your intestines, and therefore makes it very hard for your body to consume the protein gluten and to digest it well. Some of the symptoms involved with having celiac disorder would be diarrhea, constipation, anemia. Anemia also results in a lot of weakness, shakiness. I myself have had anemia for 10 years, so it's definitely is a side effect that some people have when they are diagnosed with celiac. Other symptoms include fatigue, headaches, and reproductive problems. So if later on in life you have had celiac and you continue to consume gluten and you don't stop even though you know you have celiac, you could in fact have reproductive issues such as miscarriages. So it's something that people should definitely take very, very seriously. Now when I say celiac disease, it sounds a little bit more complicated than it is. How many of you have ever heard of celiac disease? Okay, so all of you have heard of it. How many of you actually knew beforehand what celiac was? No. Okay. Well, I'm glad you came, because none of you seem to have, known what celiac was before. But it is, like I said, just a digestive disorder. It's an autoimmune condition where this gluten is damaging the lining of your small intestine, and it prevents your small intestine from absorbing parts of food that are important for staying healthy. So the important nutrients that you consume when you eat food, your body doesn't in fact digest. So it really does affect your health, and it is really important that you do not consume gluten if you are in fact, diagnosed with celiac disease. Now, another point involved with celiac disease would be gluten intolerance. And gluten intolerance is just similar to an allergy. It's very similar to an allergy, celiac disease, but it's on a smaller level. So it is very important that even if you aren't diagnosed with celiac disease, you find out if you have gluten intolerance, because gluten intolerance can also affect your body a lot. Yes?
Are there different levels of gluten intolerance?
That's actually a very good question. Are there different levels of gluten intolerance? Well, like I was just getting into, so it's very funny that you brought it up. Celiac disease will be the worst level of a gluten allergy. Basically, celiac disease is I have a digestive disorder where my body cannot consume gluten, and therefore I should not consume gluten. If I continue to consume gluten, then such symptoms, even worse, such as intestinal cancer and reproductive issues, may occur. And then a lower level, because you asked if there were multiple levels of celiac disease or gluten intolerance, would be gluten intolerance. And gluten intolerance is where you can consume gluten, but you cannot consume a good portion of gluten. So therefore, you kind of have to ration how much gluten you have, because your body can only take it in quantity. So you're not necessarily diagnosed with being allergic to gluten, but you are diagnosed where it still affects your stomach. You still get sick. You still, get headaches and fatigue when you eat gluten, and you still feel very bad. So that's a very, very good question, and thank you for asking that. Gluten intolerance is a problem that many people, like I said, are facing, and celiac disease has actually quadrupled just in the past 60 years. So it is a disease that we still do not know enough about to where we have a cure, but it is occurring to a lot of people. So therefore, we are doing more and more research in the United States and in other countries such as Great Britain to find out, about gluten and how it affects the body and how you can handle it. And when I say food allergies, according to statistics found on CNN.com, 15% of people in the United States think that they have a food allergy. At the end of the day, only 4% of them actually have a food allergy. But out of that 15%, over half of them do have an intolerance to certain foods. So even if you aren't diagnosed with, a disease such as celiac disease, you could still in fact have gluten intolerance. So it's very important that you go to a doctor if you feel some of these symptoms affect you. Just a little fun fact for you. Not just people like you and I can have, celiac disease. Celebrities such as Zoe Deschanel also have celiac disease, and Keith Olbermann and Billy Bob Thornton. So just in case you think if you're diagnosed with something that you're the only one, people don't understand you, just know that plenty of people do suffer from the same things. For me, it was a little bit different when I was diagnosed with celiac. It was hard. Basically your entire pantry has gluten in it. You have to slowly start cutting food out. I had to do it slowly, so I'd slowly take out a few items of the pantry and then replace them with gluten-free options, because it is a huge change. The foods do not taste the same, but you can find some that are comparable to some of your favorite foods, which is what I have up here. A lot of, for us in college that need to have budgets, we try to buy, boxed meals such as ramen noodles and things like that. Well, I can't eat ramen noodles, but there are still fast meals that you can buy. This one I found at Drug Emporium because they have a lot of gluten-free foods, and I recommend that store. And it's just a meal in minutes, and it's a taco pasta, so it just has gluten-free options in here, so you can still have some of your favorite foods. Pretzels, this is a really good brand. Glucinio is a very good gluten-free pretzel brand, and they also have other snacks and cookies that are really good. And then my favorite brand of food, of breads, would be the Udi's brand. They offer rolls, hot dog buns, bread, pizza dough, and it's a really good brand, and it actually tastes really, really delicious. So if you ever want to try any of those, I would definitely recommend those. I'll leave these up here if you guys want to try any of the bread or the pretzels. Please feel free at the end of this presentation. Now, you probably wonder, if I have celiac disease, what are the symptoms? And like I said, fatigue, but some more include abdominal pain, constipation, a decrease in appetite. A lot of times people will lose weight, or they will get a large increase in weight because their body isn't consuming the right nutrients to keep them healthy, diarrhea, and that includes pale, loose stool. And then a lot of people that suffer from gluten intolerance and celiac disease also are lactose intolerant. I myself am not lactose intolerant, but my mother is, and she is also, has celiac disease. So it is definitely a very common thing. And then also nausea and vomiting. So for me, I was constantly getting sick. I couldn't eat out at a restaurant without having to rush home to the bathroom. So, it's something that definitely affects your life. If you have celiac disease, there are some other diseases and problems that you could also be more susceptible to if you continue to eat gluten. Those diseases include Addison's disease, Down syndrome, and intestinal cancer, and also thyroid problems. So just keep those in mind. They are things that are very serious, and so therefore if you feel like you have any of these symptoms, or anyone you know at home or your friends have these symptoms, if you constantly see them running to the bathroom or feeling sick immediately after eating, maybe suggest to them that they should get tested. Because it is a very, very serious thing. Other symptoms include bruising easily, depression, anxiety, like I said, and hair loss, cramps, ulcers, and seizures. So it is a very serious thing, and that you should definitely, pay attention to. How do you find out if you have celiac disease or you are gluten intolerant? Well, there are some signs and there are some tests. For me, I had to have a blood test, and then they immediately found out that I was gluten intolerant. And there are also, different biopsies that they do of your intestine to take out a little bit of that tissue and to see if, if the gluten is affecting your body the way it would if you are allergic to it. Some signs include albumin, which would be low, high levels of alkaline phosphate, and abnormal clotting of the blood, low cholesterol, and anemia. So if you feel like any of those affect you and you also get sick, then you definitely might want to, check out celiac disease and do a little research. Now the process is, if your blood test is positive for having a gluten allergy, they'll then do the endoscopy for biopsy, and they'll take out like I said, a little piece of your intestine, and check the villi and everything in it, and see if your body is being affected by gluten. So like I said, it sounds a little bit more complicated than it is. It's a really quick in and out procedure. It really doesn't hurt, and it's very beneficial because you know exactly how gluten is affecting your body and to what degree it has already affected your body. Oftentimes it's you can have a genetic testing to find out if you are susceptible to the gluten intolerance gene, because it is often the most hereditary disease. My own grandmother has celiac disease, but because she is 90 years old, for the longest time no one could tell her what was wrong with her. About 15 years ago she had to have part of her intestine removed because the gluten had destroyed so much of the villi in her intestines. So it is something very seriously, but the fact that we are the younger generation and we can get tested for it, that we can, take care of it faster and much better than, the people before us could, like my grandmother. Celiac disease cannot be cured. It is not something that you can take a pill for. I wish it was. That would make it a lot easier. But it is not. The only way to, handle your celiac disease would be to have a completely gluten-free lifestyle. And it sounds very difficult. At the end of the day, you're going to have a few hiccups. You're going to have a little gluten now and then. But it is possible, and you will feel much better. You won't get sick anymore. You won't feel bloated all the time. You will actually be able to go to a restaurant and sit there and enjoy your company instead of rushing home. So, just to help that, you can also go see a dietitian. They have specialties, and they can help you form a gluten-free lifestyle, and that is very beneficial. I did that myself, and it made it a lot easier. She came to my home and helped me to go through my pantry and my kitchen and find gluten-free alternatives for my favorite foods, which I found to be very, very, very beneficial. Now, some of the main points that I want you to remember would be that gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. Now, more and more research is showing that gluten could also be contained in some oats. It is not 100%, but it is something that you would want to check the back of all the foods that you eat for. So on the back of every food that you would go to the store to buy, you would search the back, and where it says ingredients, at the bottom it would always say may contain, so this one says contains soy and contain traces of sesame. So just as if you were allergic to soy, you would check the back for food to see if it says may contain wheat, barley, or rye. Oftentimes not, it will just say wheat, so that will be your automatic indication to not buy that food item. But like I said, most gluten-free foods do say gluten-free on them, so that makes it very easy. If you go to your local stores, such as Kroger, Whole Foods, Central Market, and here in Denton we have a store called The Cupboard. They all have giant sections of gluten-free foods that are easy to find and easy to buy, and I like going to those stores because they at least have one whole aisle of just gluten-free food. So
what about pizza?
What about pizza? Does pizza have gluten in it? Most pizzas that you're going to buy at stores do have gluten in them, but at a lot of pizza restaurants, they are actually making gluten-free options. I myself can go to the grocery store and get a gluten-free crust, so that's very, very good. The Udi's brand also makes a very good one. You just find it in the frozen section. You can make it at home. We also have a restaurant here in Denton called the Mellow Mushroom, which is also in Austin and other places in the States, where they have gluten-free sections. They also have lactose intolerant sections, so if you do have allergies, they will cater to you. So most big restaurants and chains are going to have gluten-free menus. I went to On the Border a few months ago, and they didn't have a gluten-free section in the menu, but when I asked them, they were able to go back, print it off of the internet, their online gluten-free menu, and bring it to me, and I could pick something. They're really, really there to help you, and people aren't going to get frustrated. Now, smaller, more local restaurants may not have gluten-free menus ready for you, but since they are smaller restaurants, I found that if I just ask to talk to a chef or manager, they can come up with something for me, whether it's a salad or a nice piece of fish or chicken. They can normally find something that will work for you, so you're not completely limited to eating at home. You can definitely find options out there. As for fast food, that's definitely going to be harder. Subway, like I'm sure many of you have seen. How many of you have seen the gluten-free bread at Subway? Okay, 2 of you have seen it. So they do offer the gluten-free bread. It is for, I think, $1 or $2 more, but it's completely worth it, and it makes you feel a lot better. So how many people get celiac disease? 1 in 133 people get celiac disease. So like you can see right here, 6% of the American population has gluten intolerance. And that, like I said, has quadrupled in the past 60 years. So it's only a matter of time before it's even bigger. And the more people that are diagnosed with celiac disease, the more options that are becoming available. So I find that to be very beneficial, despite the fact that I wish no one had celiac disease. We've talked about if left untreated, you could suffer from osteoporosis, reproductive issues, miscarriages, liver disease, neurological issues. So it is something that if you are tested and find out that you have it, that you should definitely take very, very seriously. Now, gluten-free, how to have a gluten-free home? Like I said, if you ever have house guests or find out someone in your family does have celiac or gluten intolerant, you can make sections for them. For me, I live with a roommate who in no way, shape, or form is allergic to gluten. So we just keep our food on separate sides of the pantry, and we also have separate measuring cups and whatnot, just to make sure there's no cross-contamination. Just like you would do when you go to a restaurant and you tell them you're allergic to nuts. They make sure there's no cross-contamination. And so that's what we try to do at our home, and it makes it a lot easier. The gluten-free change. The gradual change to gluten-free is not easy. But if you have people there to support you, I had my mother who was constantly sending me packages of different gluten-free foods and emails about different places to try. There's actually a gluten-free expo in Dallas this past September that we went to, and you get to try just a lot of different gluten-free foods and find out what you like and what you don't like, so you don't have to go to the grocery store and try a whole bunch of different foods that you may or may not like. So that was really nice, and I got a whole list of different foods, which is on these handouts over here that I'm going to be passing out to you before we leave. So, and then why change the way you eat? Because, it's going to make you feel healthier. Obviously, if you do not suffer from celiac disease, you're not required to switch to a gluten-free food. But there are some good options and some foods that I find that even taste better than the gluten-free versions, or than the gluten versions. Like these gluten-free pretzels, my absolute favorite pretzels, and in my opinion, they taste a lot better than the regular pretzels. So the one problem that you will have with buying gluten-free food is it is going to be more expensive. You know, you cannot buy this bag of pasta for $1 like you can regular pasta at Target or Walmart. This pasta is going to cost you about $5. But if you budget well, then you can make it work. And so that's just kind of what I've had to learn to do. So over here on the whiteboard, I just have the 3 main points of what I hope you're taking away from this presentation. Gluten. All of you have heard of gluten, but you know, just in case you forgot, it's the protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. So whenever you go to the store, just start looking at the backs of the foods that you're buying, and you'll realize that a lot more of them contain wheat than you would ever imagine. Celiac, the digestive disorder. Intolerance is where you can only handle small portions of gluten. So just remember, celiac disease is where you should not consume gluten at all, and gluten intolerance is where you consume small amounts, just not large quantities. And then the brands of foods that are gluten-free that I recommend that all of you try, and I would hope that you try some before we leave, are, like I said, the Udi's brand. So this type of bread, very good when toasted. And then the glutamine pretzels, which also have cookies and others. And then the Nasta pasta. So I just wanted to write these up here for you so that you could, you know, take notes while you were going through this. I hope that everyone enjoyed this presentation, and I wanted to know if anyone had any questions. I know it's a kind of a quick presentation, but there is a lot that I still have to learn about celiac disease and gluten intolerance. Like I said, I was only diagnosed 3 years ago, and you know, more and more information is becoming available, but there's still not a large amount to where you can just go straight to someone and, you know, they tell you, oh, you can just do this instead. It's definitely a struggle, but I just want to see if anyone had any questions for me. If you don't, that's okay too, but just in case.
So if I suffer from these symptoms, is it good for me to get tested?
If you suffer from yes, Ashley, thank you for asking that question. If you suffer from these symptoms, it is good for you to get tested, which is why I wanted to do this presentation. Even though only 6% of the American population right now has been diagnosed with celiac disease, I'm almost positive there are plenty more that have celiac disease. If you suffer from these symptoms like you asked, you should get tested. I wouldn't want to live my life always being sick and wondering why, you know, and that's what I had to deal with for many years. And so once I finally figured out that it was a serious issue that I could control by changing my diet, then it was definitely well worth it. Was it harder? Absolutely. But like you said, if you suffer from these symptoms, do you suffer from these symptoms? Yes. Okay. Then you should definitely get tested. Like I said, just go to your local doctor and you know, ask them for an allergy test. Tell them what you're dealing with, and they will be more than willing to help you. Like I said, my grandmother suffers from celiac disease, I suffer from celiac disease, and my mother suffers from celiac disease. So it's very common in my family, but you know, even if you're the only one in your family will work with you, and I'm sure they will help you out. So if you suffer from celiac disease or any of these symptoms, I recommend that you get tested. If you don't, then thank you for coming nonetheless, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. And if there's any more questions, you can just stay after, and we can try these foods and see what everyone thinks. So thank you for coming.